From Jamie's most vile torture scene to Roger's painfully boring flashbacks, even the all-time fave, Outlander, has left fans shocked and disappointed more than once. Here are some of the episodes and scenes that made fans angry to their core. So brace yourselves as we start off with one of the most disturbing episodes in TV history, Wentworth Prison. If you're an Outlander fan, there's no way in hell you'd ever forget this episode from Season 1. I mean, even the die-hard Outlander fans couldn't stomach it. If you managed to miss it, consider yourself lucky, but we're still gonna recap. So when Blackjack came on the screen, everyone knew things were about to take a dark turn. But no one could have imagined how brutal it was going to get for Jamie. The man was already captive and helpless, but the twisted torture by Jack made death seem far better in comparison. And of course, to traumatize fans even more, they just had to throw in a horrifying sexual assault on top of it. There just wasn't a warning big enough to prepare anyone for this. And so most fans just sat there shaking in their seats. That said, the fans were furious at the writers. If their goal was to show us how evil Jack was, they really didn't have to take it that far. Needless to say, the acting was just phenomenal. And I think that is what made the scene so unwatchable for most fans. I mean, think about it. The acting made the most sadistic and cruel scene seem almost real. Who wouldn't lose sleep after that? All right, enough about Jamie. The man has gone through enough trauma, and so have his fans. So, you'd think the writers would be a little more careful after the backlash from Season 1, right? Well, unfortunately, that wasn't the case. The writers for Outlander have a knack for making the scenes as graphic as possible, to the point that fans have accused them of actually promoting sexual assault. Yes, you heard that right. So hold on to your seats as we dive into another episode that was just too much for the fans to handle: Wilmington. The 8th episode of Season 4 started off on a good note, with things looking hopeful for Brianna. But hey, it wouldn't be Outlander if they didn't throw in an outrageously disturbing scene, right? And so, once again, the fans were completely caught off guard by the gut-wrenching scene where Brianna is violently attacked and sexually assaulted by a stranger. And trust me, that wasn't even the worst part. Instead of focusing on the actual assault, the show decided to give us a front-row seat to the sickos nearby, who found her screams and cries amusing. Seriously, that scene sent shivers down everyone's spine. But hold on. The fans just weren't about to watch their favorite character be done dirty like this. They demanded an explanation for poor Brianna's fate, and it's safe to say they were appalled by the answer. Turns out, the scene was meant to be some twisted punishment for Brianna pushing Roger away. Well, if the scene itself wasn't enough, the explanation just made the fans absolutely outraged. That said, executive producer Meryl Davis justified this plot point by saying, "We're not trying to be gratuitous. We're trying to depict things as they really happened in that time." I mean, come on, Meryl. Your fans are human after all, so next time maybe just dial it down a few notches. All right, folks. We know by now there's no room for rainbows and sunshine in this story. So grab your tissues as we head into one of the saddest episodes in TV history, Hail Mary. The 12th episode of Season 2 was an emotional roller coaster for many fans. The episode focused on two lovebirds torn apart by the twists of fate. Mary carrying a child, and Alex on his deathbed. While that definitely made fans' eyes water, there was still a bigger tragedy at play here. In his dying moments, Alex wished for his brother to marry his beloved and take care of his unborn child. Now you might be thinking, it's not that bad, right? Well, hold on until you hear who his brother is. It's none other than Jack Black. Yes, the same sadistic Jack Black who played with Jamie like a toy and tortured him until he broke. At this point, fans couldn't help but question, could Mary really get close to someone so hateful? It's obviously not a request that anyone welcomes, but I mean, come on, who can say no to a dying man? And so, the episode ended with probably the most wretched wedding in history, with two strangers who don't love each other, exchanging vows next to a deathbed. Talk about tears. While fans wept at this heartbreak, most of them were definitely not happy with the turn of events. And honestly, can you blame them? Imagine watching an innocent character that has grown close to your heart tie the knot with a monster like Jack. But wait, because that's not all of the show's disappointments. Outlander is notorious for building up the hype for an episode, only to give us a finale that falls flat on its face. So try not to get too angry as we move into the next episode that didn't even come close to fans' expectations, Creme de Menthe. The 7th episode of the 3rd season is the show's lowest rated episode, and for good reason too. The episode follows James and Claire's reunion after 20 years, and the fans weren't going to settle for anything less than a gripping edge-of-your-seat hour of TV. But the writers had something completely different in mind. They replaced last episode's delicious tension of Jamie and Claire's reunion with odd storylines focused on minor characters. I mean, who thought that was a good idea? Of course, it's going to annoy fans. Still, for a show that has built a huge fan base by avoiding cringy TV cliches and staying loyal to the source novels, this episode was a slap in the face to loyal fans. The episode moved a mile a minute, with fans rolling their eyes after every scene. I mean, not only was it full of fillers, but the reunion that every fan looked forward to was a total letdown. Fans believed there was no emotional resonance, and that their love seemed non-existent. What enraged the fans even more was that none of the dumb filler content even matched the books. And we all know there's nothing a hardcore fan loves more than staying loyal to the source material. So I think it's safe to say this episode was disrespectful, not only to the fans, but also to the novelist Diana Gabaldon. They were out for blood and wasted no time in attacking the writers for this joke of an episode. One fan called it 50 minutes of boring scenes, and I couldn't agree more. Another added, Diana is such an amazing writer, and this episode does not show that. I know this book has a lot going on, but the writers of the show have not stayed true to the story. And honestly, I feel for the fans. I mean, any viewer would have been disappointed. They turned the most anticipated episode of the show into the worst one ever. But still, after all the backlash, you'd think maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't make the same mistake again? Well, apparently not. It's like they want to drive the fans crazy. So get ready for the grand finale of Outlander's disappointments. And try not to scratch your eyes out because this last one was a total eyesore. Its famous last words. The 12th episode of Season 5 was one of the most boring episodes of all, according to fans. I mean, for a show as addictive as Outlander, fans must have a good reason to call it that. And believe me, they do. So, the episode follows another jaw-dropping scene that left fans paralyzed in their seats. Roger, Brianna's husband, and definitely a fan favorite, was shown hanging from a rope in the final scene of the last episode. The fans were filled with mixed emotions. They were sad and angry. They were ready for justice in the next episode. But the coming episode was a total letdown for a lot of reasons. First, there was no revenge arc. It was all Roger and his flashbacks. I mean, who doesn't hate flashbacks, especially when they're filler flashbacks? Fans felt the scenes were totally unnecessary. There was no surprising twist, just Roger reliving his memories. It was the same stuff over and over again, almost like they ran out of stuff to write. Needless to say, the flashbacks just dragged an already painful episode out longer. Secondly, the flashbacks were like those old silent films, with no sound and black and white images. Seriously? Was that the best choice to portray Roger's flashbacks after all he'd been through? The fans were definitely not impressed. And lastly, a lot of the flashbacks showed Roger hanging. In fact, they were repeated more than 10 times. One fan even pointed out that they could have saved 17 minutes by cutting down on the hangman obsession. So, needless to say, this episode was another blow to the fans' expectations. And there you have it, from vile torture scenes that'll make your skin crawl, to the most painfully boring fillers that never end. This was all about Outlander scenes and episodes that made fans angry.